very good evening to you and a warm welcome to our program Spotlight. And on Spotlight, we usually focus on current affairs and the issues of concern to the general public. So today we'll be touching on such an issue, and this is about the COVID-19 new variant. And we'll be also talking about the measures taken and what you should be doing, and also to spread awareness. So we have with us Dr. Padma Gunaratna, the President of the Sri Lanka Medical Association, to do the honors. A very good evening to you, Doctor.
Good evening.
Doctor, today my first question would be about the new variant. As I mentioned previously, I think everybody's concerned about this, not only in Sri Lanka but the world over. So let's talk about this new African-based COVID-19 variant, Omicron.
Yeah, initially if we just could discuss on how these variants happen with regard to COVID. Now say when you have a virus infection that spreads so fast like the COVID-19, if you let the virus go spreading without any control, viruses anyway form new variants. As the virus tend to multiply, when it multiply fast, more and more variants appear. So out of these variants, the ones that would not be able to compete with the already existing type of the variant anyway would not persist, they anyway disappear. So the ones that remain with us are little stronger than the already existing variant. So they are the variants that sort of attract attention of the scientists. So these variants, they define into two categories, variants of concern and variants of interest. So variants of interest are interest for scientists, whereas variants of concern, if they could make some sort of an influence for the public, if it causes severe disease, if the transmissibility is high, and if it evades the immunization, and if it evades the immunity of people who have already had the disease likewise, then it becomes a variant of concern. So this particular variant, that B11529 variant or Omicron variant, is labeled now by the WHO as a variant of concern, because it is a concern that it may cause some problems for people in the community. So that is what actually has happened in South Africa, because the immunization, vaccination rate in South Africa was very low, and there was very rapid spread of the infection, so that this new variant has emerged from the South Africa, from the population of the South Africa. Then it was noted that it spread very fast, much faster than the Delta variant. So we saw that how Delta variant spread here in Sri Lanka, and it just could within weeks that we saw that it is all over the country. So likewise now this variant in South Africa has already transmitted beyond South Africa. So that is the concern.
So this is considered as a variant of concern by the WHO as well.
Yes.
So as you very correctly mentioned that we kind of categorize the variants accordingly. So it's variant of interest, variant of concern. So since this is a variant of concern, let's talk about how far this has spread throughout the world.
Yeah. So now if you when you think of the variants, now these happens because of mutations. So the virus, this particular virus has about a very large number of mutations. I mean it's about more than 50 mutations, and the component or the part of the virus that is important or that has attracted attention of scientists more often is what is called the spike protein, and there are about 30 mutations in the spike protein itself of this variant. So therefore it spread fairly fast, and already it has gone beyond South Africa, and it's reported that it's has been detected in Belgium, Botswana, Hong Kong, Italy, Germany, and even in the United States. So in no time you would see that it is all over.
Exactly. And what's the difference between this specific variant Omicron and the other COVID-19 variants we've heard about, Alpha, Beta, Delta?
Actually that is what I meant, that I mean when from the time that it was the SARS-CoV-19 was detected in Wuhan, China, this produced many variants. Then I mean variants happen with mutations of the gene. So the many types of mutations happen based on that I mean, they label them as alpha, beta, gamma and delta, and based on the biological behavior of the virus, it becomes important for us to recognize variants. So, we thought that we saw that we were so much concerned of the delta variant. So, the difference is that it is with big number of mutations, and particularly there are about 30 mutations in the spike protein itself. So, that the behavior of the virus per se, though it is a coronavirus, though it is SARS-CoV-2 virus, the behavior of, there are many things that are not still known to scientists. So, that we still do not know how the clinical spectrum of this disease would be and how dreadful that would be for public and things. There are many other things that are not known, and with regard to the susceptibility for vaccination as well.
And how do they detect which variant this person has contracted, doctor?
Scientifically they can say by, I mean, you know that we have many tests to diagnose COVID-19. We have RAT, the rapid antigen detection test, and then we have PCR. So, by doing PCR to some extent, then they could detect what is described as dropout, and that, I mean, that would give a marker of the disease, and it would not exactly, I mean, it did not very precisely recognize this variant, but it is by the lab techniques called sequencing that could be done here in Sri Jagadhanapura University, that they will be able to detect the virus. So, actually we have the facility here in Sri Lanka if it is there to detect the virus.
And doctor, let us talk about the rate of spread now. Is this rapidly, now you mentioned that this has been detected in many countries. So, should the people, the general public in our country be worried about this and be anxious about this, and the measures they should be taking with regards to this?
Yeah. Finally, when it comes to the type of the vaccine, it is a coronavirus, and it spreads from human to human, and it affects the respiratory system. The spectrum beyond that is still not known. So, there are many things that are not known with regard to this particular variant, but because it spreads so fast, about 500 more times more than even the delta variant, there is a worry that if that I mean, if a particular country contract the disease, then whether that would affect many people in that country, and whether the many, when many are affected, many would develop the disease, and then there is a possibility that many would develop complications. So, that that would become so much of a burden for the healthcare system of the country. So, therefore, there is a concern, all countries have to be concerned. But as far as the people are concerned, I mean, it is still a virus, and a virus that you contract from another, so that if you do not contract it from another, there is no way that you could get the disease. So, that the people should be aware how you contract the disease, what precautions that they need to take, and and they should be able to take the responsibility of them not contracting the disease. And also it is important for people to understand that even if you do not develop the disease, you could be a carrier, you could carry the virus to another who is at home, so that they do not become a carrier and take that virus to the innocent, that may be the old people, old parents who are at home. So, that it is the one, I mean, the feeble people who are at home would be the victims of the disease.
They are the most vulnerable as
That's
well.
right, exactly.
So, doctor, you mentioned about people's worry and concern and what they should be doing. So, now that in Sri Lanka the country has opened up and people are moving around, and even like some people tend to go out station as well, and then they have gatherings. So, what would you like to tell the people in terms of how they should behave?
Yeah, with regard to the Sri Lanka, actually the government already has taken certain steps of transmitting or the arrival of the virus to Sri Lanka, because they have already stopped arrival of flights from these countries that have been detected to have the illness, and then they have strengthened their quarantine laws and have made quarantine 14 days compulsory for all people who are arriving from these countries. So, that it is important that we implement all these rules that are being developed by the Ministry of Health, and we implement them to 100%. And once we consider the community, the public, it's the basic health principles that we have been discussing for this long that would protect you from contracting the disease from another. So, we are in the mask is so important, and from the time that you leave home and until you get back home, you need to wear this tight mask in a way that you cover both the nose and the mouth, as well as the maintaining social distancing and frequent washing the hands, and then to avoid unnecessary crowded environments so that you do not contract from people. And also, say if you are in an enclosed environment, to maintain ventilation in that environment as much as possible also is important. And also I must talk with regard to children as well. So, there is so much of an anxiety among teachers for teachers contracting the disease as well as for children. So, what is important is now at this point of time, it would be extremely difficult or impossible for us to stop arrival of this virus to Sri Lanka, because it spread so fast and it has already spread to many countries. So, that invariably in another few weeks we would see that this virus here in Sri Lanka as well. But what is important is that now we have a window of opportunity within which that we could take precautions, or we could get ready to face the arrival of this virus. So, it is important that we, the healthcare system, re-evaluate us and strengthen our healthcare facilities. And also for people, if you have forgotten that there was an outbreak and you get back, you resume and start practicing all the healthcare precautions. And again, it is very important that we discuss on vaccination. And
exactly.
Yes.
And doctor, you mentioned that children, the teachers are concerned about the children, and they are concerned about themselves as well, since schools have reopened. So, with regards to the vaccination drive, how do you think the schools have to operate in terms of taking in children, fully vaccinated children? Is that happening right now?
Yeah, actually, we need to be thankful to the government for taking that decision and implementing a system to vaccinate those children. So that I think that it has become compulsory. So, I expect all children to be up to the level that they decided. All children from those grades that who are supposed to get vaccination are already vaccinated. So, it is only a very limited number of children below grade 6 that who are not vaccinated. So, that the it is important that we get the children to adhere to basic health precautions, and for home people to be vaccinated, adults at home, parents as well as the grandparents are vaccinated at home. So that even if the children contract the disease and bring it home, so that they do not contract the disease. So, by that many countries had been successful in continuing with school activities. So, that we also should be able to continue our schools without closing them.
So, what advice would you give the parents in terms of educating the children, or to give them a set of rules and regulations as to what they should do and how they should behave at school, even though they are vaccinated?
Yeah, it is the basic, all this what is important has been communicated to the Ministry of Education by the Ministry of Health already, and the teachers have been adequately advised, and particularly with regard to the need of wearing well covered good quality clean mask throughout the day is something very important, and particularly when they have their meals to be as to have it as individuals and not to eat together also is another very important message that we need to give to children.
Exactly. And doctor, the children's immunity is considered very high. So, do they get the disease, or even if they contract the disease, will they fall into the critical condition?
Yeah, that is an important question, because there is nothing to say that the children do not contract the disease. Children may contract the disease, children may transmit the disease, but what is important is that the likelihood of them becoming seriously ill is very much low. Therefore, even if they catch the disease, we expect them to have very mild disease. The risk is that them taking that disease home and infecting the grandparents and the parents.
And there was also concern about the black fungal mutation or the condition which happened in India. Tell us a bit about that as well, doctor.
Yeah, that has, I don't think that has anything that we need to be worried with regard to children. That happen mainly in adults that who are with compromised immunity, particularly diabetes and all, who are anyway vulnerable for fungal infections. This particular fungus called mucormycosis that tend to happen in sinuses. I mean, these fungi are anyway there in our environment, and it's once your immunity is compromised that you tend to contract disease. So, that fungus, the multiplication and the growth of that fungus in sinuses only cause this issue. So, I mean, these people anyway are very feeble with very poor immunity, poorly controlled diabetics and so on. So, they anyway need special attention, and they anyway are likely to have worse form of COVID infection as well. So, they would need definitely the hospital attention and hospital care.
Let's touch on the booster shots as well, Doctor. Now, I think we are in the process of giving booster shots to all the senior citizens of the country as well. So, what about the rest who have been already vaccinated?
Yeah, no, as a country in general, I think we had been lucky that we acquired or we were able to get the vaccines fairly early, and then now we have successfully vaccinated about more than 70% of the community that who should receive vaccination. So, all these people that now who are eligible for booster should go for booster at this point of time, because this is a window of opportunity for us to face the variant that may arrive at any moment. So, it is important that particularly the people above 60 years and the others who are with comorbidities. When we say comorbidities, diabetes, cancers and other forms of transplant patients and liver disease patients, chronic kidney disease patients, they all should see that whether, I mean, the time for them to get the third dose, and they all should have that third dose immediately, because as at present the government has implemented a system even to vaccinate people at home. The ones that who are unable to arrive to the vaccination centers will be visited by army, and that vaccination process to vaccinate at home is available, so that all should go all out to see that you get your third dose within this very limited time that has been provided before we get the new variant. So, we insist from the Sri Lanka Medical Association, we insist all who are above 60. I mean, do not be thinking that you do not leave home and that you confine yourself at home and you do not contract the disease. It is not the case. The ones who go out would bring the disease, and it is the person who is feeble and who is confined to home will become a victim for the illness. So, therefore, we emphasize that all above 60 years should get that third dose of Pfizer vaccine.
Any proposals given to the government with regards to the measures to be taken as the president of the Sri Lanka Medical Association, Doctor?
We actually, from the time that I took over the office, of course, and even before last year as well, there were many proposals that we gave almost once in every 2 weeks, that when the need was there, when the infection was new, when the new knowledge was required, we almost every 2 weeks we updated the government and we gave our recommendations. And even with regard to vaccinations, I mean, we were the first to say that to give this third dose, the booster dose for people above 60 years, particularly for people who have received Sinopharm vaccine, because their immunity, the development of immunity was much lower than for the others who received AstraZeneca.
On this topic, Doctor, I think there are concerns now. I think we need to clarify this to the general public as well, because they are afraid to get the booster shot, because they say that it's complicated if you get a booster shot of Pfizer if you have already taken Sinopharm. So, I guess, Doctor, you can make this clear.
No, it is very clear. All over the world, they have shown the advantages of mixing vaccines. So, particularly out of the people that who received Sinopharm, 7%, scientifically it has been shown that 7% did not develop immunity. Therefore, there was a big need for us to give vaccination for people who received Sinopharm and then pass more than a month to get that Pfizer vaccine. So we emphasize that it's not only for Sinopharm now, even for AstraZeneca, because that the people who received AstraZeneca now has passed a significant period, about more than 4 months. So for them also to go for booster, for both these recipients, both Sinopharm and AstraZeneca, they should have their third dose.
And doctor, we touched on tourist arrivals to the country, and you did mention that there are measures taken with regards to stopping flights from certain countries. So what are the other measures taken in terms of protecting us from contracting a new variant, or in terms of protecting the country? Any measures taken with regards to PCR testing and all that on arrival?
They have strengthened the quarantine laws. Say if a Sri Lankan citizen arrives to Sri Lanka from any of these countries, now they have stated that the quarantine period, it's compulsory quarantine period for 14 days at home, whereas for tourists it is for 14 days in a hotel, level 1 hotel. So that's how by strengthening quarantine laws, they have taken their maximum efforts to minimize the risk of transmitting the disease to Sri Lanka. But other than that, within the country, of course, we need to maintain the basic health practices, as well as to improve the percentage who have received the vaccination.
Thank you very much, Dr. Padma Gunaratna, for joining with us this evening on Spotlight. And bringing awareness to the general public is key. So that is why we have this program to focus on the current concerns. So I think the new variant is the current concern. So that's why we picked this topic today. Thank you so much for enlightening us, Doctor, on this topic.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you for being a part of the program. And with that, we conclude this week's edition of Spotlight. Thank you for tuning in. Have a pleasant night.
අපේ වයසට යනවා. ඒ නිසායි අපි අපි ගැනත් දැන් තියාම සැලකිලිමත් වෙන්න ඕන. බඳින්න ඕනයයි කියා කවුද ඇහුවේ දැන්? හිඳින්න නෑ වෙලාවකුත් මෙන්න යනවා මං. මේ කාලෙට වගේම හෙටටත් වටින හයියක්. නොවැන්ලින්